Okay, good morning again. So I'd like to address what is the violet flame. You know, there are those of you who may have some education on this, but many of you may not. So the violet flame is an invisible, but yet seen by some, spiritual energy of the Holy Spirit. It revitalizes and invigorates us. It changes negative energy into positive energy. The flame works at an atomic cellular level, and it transmutes negative karma. When invoked, it loosens the dense substance that passes through and transforms that darkness into light. It's also the flame of forgiveness, forgiving yourself on the deep inner levels and forgiving others. First thing this morning, I'd like to call your attention to Exodus 3. And God speaks to Moses here through the burning bush. The bush burns, but it does not burn up. There is a teaching that explains that this bush is the violet flame. The flame of illumination, purity, love, a sacred connection. The lesson of Exodus 3 is trust. Have you asked yourself ever in life, what would God do? What would Jesus do? What would Buddha do? What would your true nature do? What would your I am presence do? To pause in those moments of turbulence, to take that time to ask that question, to draw that awareness. This year so far, I've been studying yoga deeper, which is fitting because we have yoga here now. And there's a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, which stuck out to me when I thought about giving this talk. It's text 61. One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man or woman of steady intelligence. Let's break that down. Restrains his senses. This is something we may or may not be doing in our daily lives. It's not something that I was always doing, and I still haven't mastered this. I was once in a place of living in the past, such as abuse, abandonment, betrayal, and a victim mentality. Torn down by health challenges and traumatic experiences. I didn't know which way was up. I held anger against myself and others. In turn, I was angry against God. Our neighbor is us, and we are one. Many that have crossed my path have held anger against God for making them carry burdens in this lifetime. As I was angry and upset and hurt, there were these teachings that did stick out to me at that time, but I didn't really know them like I know them now. And who knows if I truly know them, but in Buddhism and the Tao, there are the three poisons. So it's anger or hate, greed, and ignorance. And I was friends with all three. I forgot who I was. Until one day, I found myself in a place, and there was a woman, and she was considered a medium healer, and she wanted to talk to me. I was reluctant because the environmental influences of what was proper or what to be afraid of, and it was that thought of being afraid of a judgmental God who will, end up putting me in hell if I talk to someone like this. So that's where I was. And those of you here from certain upbringings could relate to this kind of mindset. Well, I stepped out of my comfort zone that day, and I went into a new dimension. Those women said things to me about past lives, personality traits. She said things about family characteristics, things that nobody could have known. And yet I still wasn't open I wasn't open to hearing what she was saying, but I was hearing it. I was taking it in, but it wasn't really registering. And at the end, she said something to me. She said, "You will have a winter of death." And I said, "What? That is really creepy, lady. Like, I don't want to talk to you at all." You know, that just freaked me out. I'm like, "Bye." And I literally left. And I blew her off, and I said, "Who does she think she is? Why would she tell me that? You know, she blah, blah, blah," pointing the finger. 3 are pointing back. Anyhow, she did say this, and it did freak me out, but I blew it off, and I went on with my life. The winter went by. Nothing happened. No big deal. I forgot all about this woman. The next winter came. 3 of my boyfriends that I dated for years and then had long life, childhood experiences with, and a longer friendship even after breaking up, they all died within months of each other in the winter. As I say that, there are goosebumps all over me. I freaked out. The 3rd death hit me so hard. I had such a breakdown in my kitchen. I was doing something, and I dropped everything, and I just started crying. And I had this visit from the other side, per se. And then I spoke to this woman for the 2nd time in my life on the phone a couple years later, right? 2 winters went by. So she tells me to hang on to the feeling that I felt in the kitchen. At that point, I stopped asking, how does this woman know all this? And I started asking, what was happening? Right? What was happening? What was going on right now? My concept of reality fell apart. So, I went through 2 pages, sorry. The feeling, it was pure love. It was a vibrational ecstasy. It was pure bliss that coursed through my body. And this bliss was more than just the physical. It was my entire being. I was completely shook, moved, and comforted simultaneously, which was a strange feeling. A strong surge of energy started to spiral up my spine, literally, for weeks following this. And this woman, she gave me a prayer. And wouldn't you know it, I refused to pick up the prayer. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. It was a longer, lengthy violet flame prayer. I'm like, what's the violet flame? I don't need this in my life. Didn't want it. Didn't pick it up. And what happened? Eventually, I picked up that prayer. I hit that bottom, and I was like, what can help me? Oh, this prayer is laying around. I started doing that prayer daily. Everything changed. People and experiences started to gravitate toward me without really me doing much of anything. My energy, thought pattern, grief, it all changed. I met a man from Belgium. He was twice my age, and he has now departed the planet. God bless his soul. We worked together for years with the violet flame until the day he passed. It was like a cosmic explosion of this deep oneness. It was more and deeper than the human expression. I can't really put words to it. After our first session, I didn't eat for 5 days. It's not that I love food, literally. It's not that I didn't want to eat, but there was a deep purging going on in my body, and I didn't feel that I needed food. I didn't feel that's what my body needed at that time. It was like a reset was happening inside me. I was drinking a lot of water, though. So I felt much lighter after this. This man was fluent in the violet flame. I've never met anyone like this. And he taught me things on inner planes where words really don't do justice. I have now been a keeper of the flame at the Summit Lighthouse for years, which I discovered later on the path. And I also turned away from that at first. I'm like, I don't need this. I don't need this place. And there's really so much to unpack here, but for time purposes, let me move on. So I'm going to go back to the Bhagavad Gita. And he fixes his consciousness upon me. God, Christ, Tao, Buddha, the underlying truth of the universe. I found Zen Buddhism, the violet flame, sweat lodges, where I learned I was Native American. Traced that back, figured out I was Apache. Didn't know that my whole life. The Tao, the singing crystal bowls, the Indian flute, Qigong, yoga, and art. Art came back into my life. It wasn't there before. I didn't want it. I also pushed that away. And now, this is the best painting I've ever painted of a person. And it's my daughter with her piglet when she was 4 years old. I was never able to paint a face like this. I was so impressed. I'm like, where did this come from? And of course, the background's purple. No surprise, but I was so happy. And so was she when I gave it to her on Christmas. I borrowed it. But the point is, oh, and I found unity, too. So, the point is, this steady intelligence has guided me here, now, telling you. I have given much of my life to cultivation and service because that feels like it is the embodiment of my true self. Is that always easy? No. Is it always worth it? Yes. I'd like to show you the tube of light. It has done a great deal of good in many people's lives. I'd like to explain the figure here. So this is you, and this is what we just did in the meditation. We had our threefold flame. It's right here. There's an area behind the heart they consider the secret chamber of the heart, and that is where the threefold flame resides, and it's a 1/16 of an inch high. In Jesus' time, everybody's threefold flame was huge. His took up his entire body, like we practiced in our meditation. So then we put our violet flame around us when we invoke the violet flame, such as calling forth this decree. This is a picture of Jesus. So it's the Christ. It's our higher self. It's our true nature. It's that which we communicate with to get direction, to guide us through this life, and the channelings we come in energy through this life. And then up here is our source energy. And these rays are the different rays. So you have the violet one in there, you have the blue one, you have the green one, and all these rays have different qualities. And they're all essences of who we have been, and we kind of put, like our causal body, we put all the energy of all the good things and all the things we've done in this planet and we've embodied into this area, and we can draw from that when we connect and seriously bring it into our body and manifest it in this physical world. So what I'd like you to do is see this chart and think of yourself as being on this chart, in this chart, one with this chart. And then I'd like to read you this, and then I'd like us to do it together. So I'd like to read it to you just to give you the tempo of what this is. I've done decrees for years now, and I do hours of decree work every week because it feels right and because of the momentum and energy that you create when you build this. And so I'll read it to you. Beloved, I am presence bright. Round me seal your tube of light. From ascended master flame, called forth now in God's own name. Let it keep my temple free from all discord sent to me. I am calling forth violet fire to blaze and transmute all desire, keeping on in freedom's name till I am one with the violet flame. And now if you'd like to read it with me. And just for a second before we start, I'd like you to visualize, like we did in the meditation, your threefold flame in your heart center, and then your violet flame surrounding your body. And now take a deep breath into your heart. Exhale out of the heart. And now let's read together. Beloved, I am presence bright. Round me seal your tube of light. From ascended master flame, called forth now in God's own name, let it keep my temple free from all discord sent to me. I am calling forth violet fire to blaze and transmute all desire, keeping on in freedom's name till I am one with the violet flame. Now take a breath and just see how you feel after saying that. Now let's do it one more time, together again. Beloved, I am presence bright. Round me seal your tube of light. From ascended master flame, called forth now in God's own name, let it keep my temple free from all discord sent to me. I am calling forth violet fire to blaze and transmute all desire, keeping on in freedom's name till I am one with the violet flame. Take a deep breath and see that violet flame around you one more time. And become mindful of your feet on the ground, being supported by Mother Earth in every moment, in every way, right here, right now. So let's move on. I'd actually prefer not to talk about myself like this, but I've noticed there is a need to do the things that you may not like to do, or that you may have resistance to do. As I explained earlier, that I was very resistant to this whole thing. So I debated not to tell my story in this manner, but Spirit had other plans. And they were for me to be vulnerable, to express the way that Spirit spoke to me and now through me. There is a 75-year-old woman in my Qigong class. And this month she came in and she was talking about that she was at her doctor's office. And she was waiting and waiting and waiting, and the doctor wasn't coming, and it was taking forever. And normally she would be very angry and frustrated, and this would really agitate her, right? Who likes to wait at the doctor's office? Show of hands, who likes to do that? No one? Oh, okay. So she sat there and she looked at me and she said, and I thought of you. And I said, oh, okay. And then what? And she's like, then I tried to bring up this visualization meditation. And she's like, and I couldn't remember it all. And then I thought, well, that's okay. Because I thought, what would Verana do? And I said, whoa. And I chuckled because I was like, well, I know I have a lot of work to do still. And I also know that I was only mirroring her Christ nature. And that she was able to then go into her stillness and for the first time meditate on her own and find peace in that moment. And when the doctor came in, she was happy, she was content, and she was kind to the staff. And the staff thanked her because it was a difficult day that day. And the staff was not being treated well. And she treated them well. And we need those people. On difficult days, we need those people who treat us well, who give us smiles, who give us courage. We need that. So she was so happy. She was thrilled. She was beside herself with joy. And it was beautiful to witness. So she went on with applying this in her cultivation and in her life. And applying cultivation practice in everyday life is the way. I am the way. I am the life. I am the truth. I am the resurrection. Having that kind of determination with the I am, it's called a fiat, and it's very powerful. It's not an angry determination. It's a determined, loving vibration that you put behind you that has momentum, and it carries you to new places, new perspectives, and new light in your life. My daughter called me very upset from school. She wanted me to pick her up at that very moment. She said, "Mom, please pick me up now. Everybody at school," she's in middle school now, "everybody at school is just, she's having a hard time. There's been bullying and other things going on." She called right before Qigong class, and I said, okay. So I calmed her down and then continued with the class. And at the end of class, everybody was like, "How did you do that?" Because they all heard my conversation. It was all out there. And I said, it's cultivation, and it's applying the practice in those moments, because that's what matters. And that's not easy, but it is doable. And when you do it, there's a momentum, there's a habit, and there's a way that it comes back in your life. This is the way. So now I'd like to share a letter from Johnny Huff that he wrote. To the facilitator of the Violet Flame spiritual sessions and seekers of light workers' assistance. Thank you, Verana, for this session and time you spent assisting with my spiritual condition. The additional help and guidance that you provided with the sorting of special energies is extremely helpful. During this time when I am faced with multiple challenges and distractions, the time and resources are well invested and worth the results. Please keep up the good work and continue to offer your unique talents with all who seek your light workers' talents as a source and path of additional healing. Sincerely, Johnny Huff. This is touching because he's not here to tell you. It's also touching because I could see and feel the shift in him that he needed at that moment. So, what does the violet flame feel like? When you begin to use the violet flame, it's joy, lightness, hope, newness to life. It is as though dark clouds of depression and dark, dank, negative energies melt away and are being dissolved. The violet flame is a cool flame, and yet it can feel warm, even hot at some times. It contacts the toxins in our being and the misqualified substance, which we may not be aware of at that time. It brings karma to light to be cast free by free will into the sacred flame. Recently, I was in a women's group, and a lot came up during our session, and at the end, I was going to leave. I was going to walk away, and I was going to say something, and I'm like, no, that's okay, but it kept nudging me. Spirit kept nudging me. Do this, you should do this, you should do this. I said something that was a very traumatic experience, and there was no emotional anything behind it. It was just, this is what happened, this is how I dealt with it. And that opened the door for other people to speak and say their truth. And we need that in this life too. But the only reason there was no traumatic experience behind it is because I worked through it and I worked with the violet flame. And when we work with the violet flame, these two come into the picture, Saint Germain and Lady Portia. When you work with the violet flame, these are the beings of light who are the ascended masters on the violet ray. And they're not talked about much. You don't see much of that, but they're there. And I also mentioned during the meditation, Archangel Zadkiel and Holy Amethyst, and they're the archangels on this ray. And each ray has an archangel and an ascended master, and each of us may have come in on a certain ray. So to wrap things up, the violet flame burns through all that is not of the light, and it transmutes grief, anger, and suffering. I have seen it lift and heal through me and through others who embody it. May your life be lifted by it. Recently, I watched the Mother Teresa movie. I loved it. It was great. But I'd like to share with you one of my favorite quotes. That wasn't in that movie, but she did say this. She said, "Everyone is Jesus in disguise." Now that is such a funny concept, and it's so simple, but it's so true. So why not just take off our mask? We'll feel better, and so will everyone else. I'd like to leave you with one more short mantra. And if you can't remember that whole, tube of light, then this might serve you well. And if you do want to do the tube of light every day, it keeps you in that steady presence. You can share it with others. You can use it in yourself, whatever you feel called to do. And this one is very short. It's just a simple mantra. It's, I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. So I don't have it up there, but it's pretty short. So if we just want to do it together. So I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. Now I want you to do it one more time with me, but this time go back to your heart. See that threefold flame there. And then put the violet flame all around you. Breathe into the heart space. Inhale. Exhale. And again. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. Now stay there and let's do it one more time. And this time, get loud. Feel it. Be with it. Let it come out strong. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. Thank you. And you can come back to that anytime. You can use it any way. You can say, the planet is a planet of violet fire. The planet is the purity God desires. You can use it in any way with any person, thing, or object in your life. So give it a try. I hope it works for you. I love you all. Always victory. Thank you.